Once again, I'm your host, David Smolker, part of the AEC product marketing group at Autodesk. And I'm joined now by two guys who have had a ton of fun over the last few weeks geeking out on this new integration between Twinmotion and Revit, and who want to share a glimpse of what you can do with these two tools by your side. Cesar, I'll start with you. Could you tell our audience a bit about yourself and your focus for today?
Hi, everyone. My name is Cesar Escalante. I'm a registered architect and technical marketing manager at Autodesk. My job here is to unearth stories of digital transformation in the industry. And I'm here to talk about how the new workflows and visualization can help you improve your visualization workflows.
Excellent. Thank you, Cesar. And I'm going to call Martin Craftsman up from Epic Games. Martin, how are you this morning? This evening, your time, I assume?
Yeah, it's evening. I'm in France. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us part of that webinar. My name is Martin. I'm Twinmotion Technical Marketing Manager at Epic Games. I've been working on the Twinmotion team for the last 10 years, originally in the product team, working on some assets. I was a 3D artist originally. Now I'm part of the marketing team, doing tutorials or other online presentations. So really happy to be here today.
Thank you for that. So let's go ahead and talk about the agenda today. Martin, if you want to drop, we'll see you later on in the program. In addition to Cesar and Martin, we also have on the call our producer, Garima Gupta, along with Aaron Vorwerk and Ali Atabi from Autodesk technical marketing and sales teams, and then Sam Anderson, a product manager for Epic Games. They are taking your questions through the live Q&A panel as we go, so please do send them along. Our agenda today, before we demo Twinmotion for Revit with Martin, we're going to start with some points from Cesar on the kinds of outcomes many Autodesk customers look to achieve through visualization and how Autodesk supports them. I'm going to bring Cesar back to talk about the top visualization features in Revit. Cesar, are you ready to do this?
Absolutely.
All right, so let me start with a naive observation, but when I think about visualization, the term eye candy is what pops to mind. Visuals that help tell the story of the project in the press and social media or in publications or award submissions. Maybe that's just my marketing mind. When I hear you tell it though, there's real and essential business value to capture through visualization. Could you explain more about that and what you hear from Autodesk customers when they talk about visualization and the outcomes they look to achieve?
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Before we jump into the visualization capabilities, we must focus on the business results that customers realize when they use Autodesk visualization technology. Our job at Autodesk is to provide intuitive, powerful, accessible technology that enable architects to achieve better results in their deliverables, business, and their impact in the built environment. So, visualization technology can increase stakeholders' buy-in. Our BIM technology offers visual communication capabilities for effective stakeholder and community engagement. Effective means of visual communication can help you accelerate stakeholder approval and secure third-party approvals. You can also improve win rate. Impactful representation can help firms secure points in design competition. The video you see on the screen represents the winning design of the new vice presidential palace in Indonesia. The Studio Shao won the nationwide competition in 2022 with a design represented in Twinmotion. The technology enabled the designers to produce a high-quality walkthrough in a short period of time, with the entire proposal taking just 6 weeks to complete. Improve satisfaction. Whether you need to iterate concept studies, prepare your project for design review, or validate the final selection of materials, you can use high photorealistic renderings to convey solutions that meet or exceed your client expectation. Autodesk provides you with built-in rendering capabilities that demonstrate that you're meeting every design requirements, and satisfied clients will improve the likelihood of repeated work. And another thing we're seeing is visualization as an expanded service. Architectural firms now require new ways of generating value and services. The VR panorama you see on the screen by Alessio Hebert of the St. Paul Cathedral in London was modeled in Revit and rendered in Autodesk Rendering Cloud service. The experience allows not only to appreciate the ingenuity and the high precision level of detail, but the feeling of experiencing a VR space in 360 degrees and 4K resolution. Immersive reality allows clients to get a better sense on how a space will look and feel in a way that is more like the everyday experience. And this experience can be offered to client as an additional service on top of the design.
Great example, Cesar. And I apologize, I'm having some camera issues. Interesting to see both more traditional and more cutting edge outcomes for that architectural visualization can help bring to fruition. So let's get into the details. How does Revit support customers who view visualization as essential in achieving design and business outcomes?
Yeah, to best respond to your question, David, I'm going to make use of a project that embodies how Revit is used to represent visual and project data. Vistas75 is a 5-acre private residential compound developed by Esfera Inversiones in El Salvador. The project comprises 27 townhouses, 124 apartments, distributed in 4 towers, and connected by a circulation loop. Designed by locally renowned architect Juan Jose Rodriguez and executive architect Leon Sol, the project amenities include a playground, a clubhouse, a sport fields, an ecological park, and dedicated parking spaces. Located in El Salvador, this project sits in the northern part of San Salvador, the country capital, flanked on one side by the sprawling urban city boundaries, and on the other side by the San Salvador volcano, a protected national ecological region. The site provides one of the last remaining development spots where users can enjoy both the proximity to urban amenities and the benefits of living in the midst of a rainforest. Using Revit, the design team was able to develop an intelligent set of models that centralize the information about the project in a single repository. The team integrated multidisciplinary data from consultants to create a digital representation of the project, all managed in Autodesk Docs, our cloud platform-based data environment that provide document management and control of the information to the entire project team. The adoption of BIM for this project allowed the team to reduce errors and rework, streamline design review, and distribute information to stakeholders anytime, anywhere. For the design of the townhouses, the designers turned to the market to find the demand of the personas and came up with this flexible design solution. The plan layout provided alternate space programs in anticipation to the buyer needs. Customers were given choices that fit their budget and their lifestyles. The design team also used Revit design options using the same central file, allowing them to keep a tight control on the selection of finishes and materials.
Very interesting, Cesar. And Vistas is certainly an impressive looking project. So we can see how visualization is important in the packaging of a project in the advanced stages of design. As you've shown here, it allows an architectural client to present interior design options, for example, in a highly visual way. But I'm curious, can you provide us more color on how the specific tools and capabilities of Revit support specific stages of an architectural design project and BIM process, not just the final results?
Yeah, Revit is packed with features and capabilities that support your visualization needs across the design cycle. Includes tools to communicate conceptual design, visual means to review your design, analytical views to simulate environmental analysis, and various ways to create high photorealistic representation. For those who are new to Revit, let's take a look at some of these capabilities before we jump into Twinmotion. For conceptual massing, the mass environment in Revit allows you to explore conceptual design using solid shapes, represented volumes. In this image, Jose Garcia rendered mass floors on semi-transparent shapes to convey a conceptual idea of a building. This is a simple example, yet very powerful, to easily display early design studies. Phasing. Revit helps you visualize projects stage over time and assign facing graphic overrides to existing and new elements. Facing requirements translate to visualization outputs, making it easier for stakeholders to understand what is included and what's not in the scope of work. Design options. Use design options to explore alternate designs in a single Revit model. As I mentioned earlier, the designers at Vistas75 created a townhouse design with adaptable interior spaces using design options. The adaptable interior layouts align to the needs of different target personas, including single professionals, married couples, and families with children. Design options allow the design team to model multiple interior design configurations within the same file. Using the out-of-the-box rendering capabilities, the design team was able to render conceptual interior environments offered to specific market segments. Integration with Format. Some of you already know this, but for those who didn't know, iterative conceptual design is greatly facilitated by new interoperability enhancement between Revit and Format. Format allows designers to use a fluid, dynamic modeling environment for design and exploration. In Vistas75, the design team used a new 3D sketch functionality, which allowed designers to launch a Format session from Revit, translate Revit elements as a context geometry into Format, and link Format design studies into Revit. The textures and materials are preserved in both platforms in this round-trip workflow, making it easier to preserve the rendering outputs in both softwares. Visual styles. Most of you know this, but the various visual styles in Revit can be selectively used for different purposes. For quality control of the design, hidden and shaded views provide a very easy, performance-friendly environment to execute visual checks. For finishes and furnishing reviews, realistic views allow you to validate material selection. And for high photorealistic output, out-of-the-box options include local and cloud ray tracing rendering, in addition to a variety of third-party developers who have created packages for high realistic visualization. Here is an example of a shaded crop view in Revit used as a simple and effective visualization technique to facilitate internal coordination review. This is a crop shaded view of one of the towers in Vistas75, which allows you to detect design issues before the construction starts. Sunlight, solar, and illumination studies. These are built-in capabilities in Revit to evaluate light performance in building. Illuminance studies created by our cloud rendering service provide a really quick way to understand the illumination patterns in space through daylighting and artificial light sources. Physically based materials with continued enhancements of realistic views. Revit now supports physically based materials. Revit provides these capabilities to render a scene with light behavior just as if they were in real world. The materials created, assigned, and scheduled in Revit would be typically preserved when the scene is moved to other third parties rendering engines, including Twinmotion, making it easier to preserve material selection in the same authoring environment. Virtual reality. Revit offers now an expanded capability to create immersive experience in virtual reality. With our integration with Twinmotion, Revit makes it easier to convert BIM data into real-life immersive reality experiences. Using VR devices like Oculus Quest or the HTC Vive, end users could teleport inside the design and secure stakeholder approval, make material selections on the fly, performs constructability reviews, or experience virtual walkthroughs. The wow factor associated with virtual experiences far exceeds that of any traditional means of representation. I just described a few of the Revit core capabilities that will enable you to meet your visualization goals to any level. Let's now move to the part of the presentation everyone is waiting for and discuss how you can get started with Twinmotion in Revit. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Cesar. Oh, look, video is back. I'm glad to see it. All right, let's just pop it over to Martin for the demo. Martin, great to see you. Thanks for being here. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you, David. So just before diving into that demo, next slide, a quick introduction about Epic Games, the creator of Twinmotion. Some of you might heard of Fortnite, one of the world's biggest video games with 500 million users. And we have also a history of other big hits. But you might also know that it's powered by Unreal Engine, the world's most open and advanced real-time 3D tool. In the past few years, we have acquired best-in-class solutions to round out our creative ecosystem. And this growing ecosystem is really the foundation from what we believe will be the metaverse. So now let's jump onto actually that quick demo to Twinmotion. So let me store you the share screen. You guys see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so let's start. The first thing you have to understand with Twinmotion is that you don't always need to have everything visible inside your project, because the first thing I want to do during that demo is actually import the project and do a mass site, like a view from like a drone kind of view to see the whole of the project. And I don't really need all the furniture, all the entourage, and all the small and tiny detail that will add a lot of weight to my Twinmotion project, and that I will probably never see in the images I plan to work on. So the first thing here I'm doing is through the visibility graphic panel, I'm just going to turn off a few items. Again, just making sure I only see the general of the project and not see everything that is inside. So here on the left, we can see that the furniture has been hidden. Now I will come to my View tab. At the top of the screen, here we have a Twinmotion icon, and I will just simply click on Open in Twinmotion. Of course, you first need to have Twinmotion installed. We have a tutorial on that, and we can post the link in the description. When you have installed Twinmotion and when you click on that Open in Twinmotion button, it automatically launches Twinmotion and starts the synchronization project. So here it's actually a new project. It will be the first time I import that project in a new Twinmotion scene. There is a few options if you want to optimize your file. And I'm going to press OK to actually just basically import my file, my Revit file into my Twinmotion scene. So it takes a bit of time, and that project is fairly huge, as you can see here, but it just imports fine. I retrieve the texture that has been already set up inside Revit. And of course, Twinmotion also have its own library of material that we'll be able to use later. First thing I'm doing here is start to play with the time of day and see how the lighting will affect my project. Also, talking about the user interface, on the left, we have the Twinmotion library, which is native and comes with thousands and thousands of assets and material. The first thing I want to do here is to add a terrain. Our project here is near a mountain and also near a forest. So the first thing I want to do here is really set a few nice grass material on the terrain and on the mesh that has been imported from Revit. And now I'm using a simple sculpt tool just to make sure my Twinmotion terrain is matching the terrain coming from Revit. So here it's a bit of a manual process for now, where I'm just using various tools. We have a raise tool, we have a flatten tool that I'm going to use. We can also paint material on the terrain. Here, yeah, just trying to use the paint tool, just making sure, the flatten tool, just making sure the geometry of my terrain align pretty well with my Revit scene. And again, that's a bit of a long part, but again, that's a fairly large project, and I want to have something nice, so I'm just taking a bit of time just to make sure it aligns pretty well with the surrounding. Again, here, using that align tool, just to flatten the area in front of the project here. So now that we have roughly the shape of the terrain surrounding my project, what I want to do now is start to talk about vegetation. Twinmotion ships with hundreds of vegetation assets. You can find them in the library, vegetation trees. When you drag and drop a tree inside your scene, each tree actually exists in 3 different ages and are fully customizable. So here, let's bring it closer to the camera, like that. At the bottom of the screen, we have a few options to change the age, the height, or the color of the leaves. Here, for example, I'm playing just with its size. What you can do here is drag and drop assets one at a time. Here, I've selected multiple assets in my library. They are now under my mouse. It's called the multi-drop tool. And at each time I will click in the viewport, Twinmotion will randomly take one object from my selection, and it will add it to the project. So it's a quick way to add vegetation. So we saw the drag and drop. We saw the multi-drop. We can also paint a forest directly within Twinmotion. So here I just enter my paint tool. I'm dropping a few objects in my drop box. I will enable my paintbrush, and I will start to paint onto my terrain to paint those 3 just next to my project. I can raise the diameter of my brush just to paint that forest a bit faster. And here I will just paint my my trees, my Austrian pine and West spruce just alongside that project. So here, just making sure I cover all around the project, because I want to do, as I said, that kind of drone view around the project. So I don't want to see just a flat horizon. And even after I created my paint, I can customize it. So here I've placed a new tree in my Dropbox, and on that specific tree, I can customize the age or the scale. I can even add a bush in that Dropbox. So for example, here, jumping onto my bush folder, I will drop my bush in my forest. And if I come closer to the ground, you can see that that bush has been scattered throughout my forest. I'm a bit quick, but it's because we have a packed agenda, so we want to cover a lot of things. So now that we are pretty good with the forest, I can turn on the path tracer, which is another rendering mode built inside Twinmotion, will give you a way more accurate representation of the lighting. Let's now create a camera. Here I came to the media image dock. I click on the plus to create a new camera. And here I'm placing with a few options. There are many different options. Here I'm sticking with the basics, the focal length. We can also enable the depth of field, but let's just be simple for this first image. I will update my point of view, clicking on a refresh just to memorize the new camera position. And again, here I can turn on the path tracer to have an accurate representation of the light and shadows. I can even precisely geolocalize my project. So this project, as Cesar mentioned, is in San Salvador. So I can just type San Salvador. It will be probably in the center of the capital. I can also type directly the address if I want to retrieve the exact location and to be able to do some proper sun study and check how the surrounding, how the building, how the lighting and the shadow will be affected throughout a day. So here, just playing with the time of day, so we can see, as I said, how the impact of the shadow of the different building will affect the whole project. By default, when you import a project from Revit, you retrieve all the lights set inside your Revit file. I don't really need those in that rendering, so I just opened that right panel, which is the scene graph, where you find the hierarchy of your file, and I just press the hide button to hide all the lights, just a matter of optimization. So here now, let's create a second camera. On that second camera, I want to change the focal length, so I'm switching to a 35mm focal. And now what I want to do is come closer to the ground. So I'm moving the camera down. I want, like I said, I want to have a camera at the height of a human being. So something like that, or maybe on the other side. Let's go on the other side. You might see that it's a bit pixelated. First, there is the share screen, but also the path tracer. When you see those noisy images, the path tracer that is kicking in, and it usually doesn't translate really well with the zoom share screen. So here, I set up my new camera. On this specific camera, I can customize many things like the weather or the time of day. Here, I'm just playing just to see what will be the look of the project in the morning. And for the next step, what I want to do is start to play with the material. So Twinmotion comes with hundreds of material directly inside the library. So here I'm drag and dropping a few material onto my scene, playing at the bottom of the screen with a few options like the scale or the colors. Also here, I'm some glass on the window so we can better see the reflection on it. I will come closer also to that door to add a new wood material. As you can see, we have many material in that Twinmotion library. You can also create your own materials if you have some texture like diffuse, normal, and roughness. After you have added your material, you can also, again, customize them. So here I'm changing the scale of a material. I can even rotate the orientation by playing with that rotation slider. I'm going to apply the same kind of material on that part here, which will be where the ivy will grow on our project, and that will be one of the next steps. So we added a couple of materials. Yeah, maybe it's time now to let's have a look just a bit back to see the whole project. The whole part of those residential houses. And now I want to come back to the vegetation, maybe add some more vegetation in front of our asset, in front of our house, sorry about that. So I've showed you that you can paint a forest with that paint tool. So you can paint a really large area with that paint tool, but you can also use the paint tool to paint some smaller assets. So here I'm drag and dropping some ivy manually, one at a time. Here, what I want to do here is come to the mist folder. I will drag that simple brushable ivy, and I will use a really small brush to actually paint my ivy directly on that part of the project. Size of the brush might be a bit smaller, a bit too small, so I'm just raising the size to brush that ivy a bit faster. And again, I'm doing that in front of all the houses just to add some more greenery. Again, that project is in really next to a natural area, and that was one of the design idea behind that project, is to keep the nature part of the project itself. So I've added the ivy. Now we can add some more bushes. So here, placing a few bushes inside, in front of the project. Again, just a simple drag and drop. You want to play with the scale. It's just a simple slider. It's really what is the core pillar of Twinmotion, is really the simple ease of use of that user interface. Now I'm adding more material to the project. Here I'm dropping an asphalt material on my ground. I can play with the time of day to see that material during different lighting conditions. I can customize a few things, like here I'm adding a bit of grunge just to make it look a bit more real, a bit more realistic. For the next part, what I want to do, maybe more material. Now, let's actually have a look at some vehicles to place them in front of our house. Twinmotion ship with those vehicles that look pretty good. We have some nice reflection. You can customize the colors. So here I'm just going to place basic gray car in front of this one. I'm going to place another car in front of that second house, again, just to start to give and to breathe life into that project. So that starts to look great. Now let's have a look at characters. Twinmotion have a different way to add characters inside a project. You have the 3D animated humans. When you drag and drop a character on your project, you can switch the color of the clothes. So there is a few variations. You can change the pose. Maybe it's an idle state, maybe it's speaking, maybe it's sitting, maybe it's lying, or maybe it's even dancing. And once you choose a pose, there is a list of animations. So maybe it's doing a casual dance or a more energetic one. So let's come back to maybe a speaking pose, something like that. And we can put maybe Emily in front of Amir, that, yeah, she's listening to him. So this is how you can manually add one character one at a time. But that project is fairly huge. So we have some groups. When you add a group, it randomizes the characters that are called on that group. So for example, here, at each time I'm adding that group of 3 people, it will randomize the different character that is called inside that group, just to break up repetition. You also have ready pose. The advantage of ready pose character is that it's a photo scan of a real person. So it's fairly, it's really ultra realistic, but it's in a static pose. So it's great when you want to create a still or you want to just render some nice image. That will be the go-to solution. But if you want to create a video, like the 3D animated, people will be the go-to solution. So here, just placing my car a bit more carefully so it doesn't collide with the character walking on the sidewalk. Just making sure the few things we have added align well with my camera perspective. Actually, yeah, let's just maybe move the camera a bit back just so we can see a bit more the different characters we have added to the project. I'm pressing refresh and I'm pressing the path tracer button. Path tracer, again, take a bit more time to calculate. It's the difference with the raster where you have that immediate feedback, but the representation of the lighting is more approximate. So we have a pretty cool project now. We have a few different points of view. Now, what I want to show you here is actually let's add a bit more life by creating some paths. So I'm going to the context paths. Here we have different paths that allow you to create animation faster. The first thing I want to do is create a character path. So here I'm using basically a spline tool to create a spline. I will just create that spline quickly. Once I release my tool, character will automatically start to walk along that path. Just going to remove some of the objects along the way, like those cars and those characters, just to make sure my character walking are not colliding with the characters that are standing. But here, in just 4 or 5 clicks, I've created that path, and we have some people actually walking inside that project. Same thing with a vehicle path. Here, I'm just creating a spline in the middle of my road. And again, once I release my tool, vehicle will automatically start to drive on that path. So as you can see, it's really pretty simple and also pretty fast to have something animated with Twinmotion. Now, I'm just jumping to a version of the project where I took a bit more time to set up the lighting, set up the material. As you can see here, we have more different variation of the lighting, the better material on the houses. We have some grass. We have a few different points of view, like on the apartment side of the project. So here, I just basically took a few more hours onto that project, and I just wanted to switch to that project just to show you what you can achieve in a matter of a few hours with Twinmotion. So here again, just a few of the point of view we've created. Actually, by the way, in the introduction slide, the image you were seeing on screen were these images that were created inside Twinmotion. I saw the question in the chat earlier, so those were created directly with Twinmotion with the workflow I've just shown you. So those images were created in 4K resolution. It took around 1 or 2 minutes to render. It really depends on the graphic card you are running on your computer, because Twinmotion works indeed with your graphic card. Before ending up my demo, I just wanted to show you the design option that Cesar mentioned earlier. So here within Twinmotion, we have a scene, what we call the scene state. It's a tool that allows you to switch and visualize, for example, here, different design options. I'm getting closer to the interior of my file just to better see that in action. So here we have the first design option, and I'm using the scene state here to switch from the different design option of that specific house. So it's something that you can do with your client sitting next to you. You can be presenting the apartment, the interior, the house, and show you the different design options just to better validate what the client wants at the end. For this project, I have created also different images. Here, some large view of the design option. I can switch from one image to the other and export those in 4K. I also have a closer look on the interior where I can switch again using the scene state and visualize those different design options. I also have created some interior shots. Again, same point of view, just using different scene state, using different design options. Usually, the path tracer, it's the button I'm playing with here. You can set different settings that will have a higher or lower quality. Here, just for the sake of rapidity, I'm switching to low the calculation of the path tracer. So that will be way faster to give you that nice image. But again, it's a bit more, it's less accurate. So while working in the viewport, it's great to be able to switch to that faster results. But again, for a final export, I will usually raise the quality just because it's the final image, the final thing I want to share with my client. And here I'm just navigating inside my scene in real time. And again, at any moment, I can turn on the path tracer. A bit too dark by default here. So let's just actually maybe raise the exposure of the camera. Maybe also switch the settings here. It doesn't work always. For example, here it's a really bit noisy because it's really, I didn't place any light inside that project. So again, yeah, it's just, we wanted to show you a bit what you can achieve with Twinmotion for both exterior and interior. And after hitting that export button, that was some of the image we created with that file. So yeah, again, 4K images took around 1 minute or two to render, depending on the point of view. Those project is quite a large project. Again, a lot of polygon on screen. So so yeah, it's basically the end of my demo, and I'm passing over to David again.
Wow. Martin, excellent. Thank you for sharing that with us. Really, really exciting to see Vistas75 come to life like it did. And you can see sort of the applause and the reactions from our audience, who I want to thank also for their time.